love the dap at the end. What time it is? It's Merry Monday. With this guy. Oh yeah. Today it's about hope. Last week was about divorce. It's about hope now. So the reason I'm talking about hope is because it actually is a real thing that we all have to hold on to, even those of us who are married and in struggling marriages, those of us who are searching, because people have given me a lot of feedback. They've heard a lot of awful stories, and I'm here to tell you about some good ones. Okay, my first really important point about this is that God really is capable of all things, even in the most dire situations, including abusive situations and situations where there are children involved. I have a blog post on YasGuru.com called The Dialogue I Can't Quite Shake, and it really is about practical advice for people who are dealing with the odds being stacked against them in searching for the right partner. And in it, I talk a lot about prayer, night prayer, prayer. Here's a personal story. I went through a really terrible divorce, a really awful one. And this guy is the answer to one of my prayers that I made in the middle of the night consistently. And I was alone for 2 years, and it was extremely difficult, but extremely important. So if it can happen to some ordinary person like me, it can definitely happen to you out there. Our community doesn't talk enough about resilience and about the fact that, when you're knocked down, what does it take to actually get up? What's the support that you need? And how much alone time do you really need? We can talk about that. So the mental health professionals that I saw told me that I needed to be alone for at least half the length of my previous relationship. So take whatever relationship you were in before, half it, and that's the minimum time you need to be alone. Of course, you might take longer or shorter, but that's a good number. So there. One other inspirational story, a friend I know, she'd been divorced for 6 years in a super abusive relationship, had 2 children, and had lost hope. But you know what? There was an excellent person in the community, and she got her name around there, and they got married. Just like you are searching out there, there's also other people who are searching out there, good people, decent people. Sometimes it's hard to remember that, especially with the ghosting that's happening, the lack of commitment. But there are still very good people still out there, I promise. But it requires you out there to do the self-work that it's going to take to be ready to be in a relationship. It's going to require to have God with you and to pray about it, to make sure it feels right, to make sure that your family is on board. There's some things that have to happen. There's also really good data out there that's starting to capture this, and I would love to be a part of more research that does this, but ISPU showed data that there are more Muslim men than Muslim women searching for marriage, except that they're less educated and generally less practicing. So that ISPU data needs to be probably unpacked, like what is a practicing guy and what's an educated versus non-educated. In general, across America, women are more highly educated than men. It's just happening. That's just the way it is. So you got to figure out, is that a core value? So while I advocate that you are the rule, not the exception, just know that your story and someone else's story, they're not going to be perfectly exactly the same. So whenever you get down by hearing bad, negative stories about people falling apart, just realize that doesn't have to be you. There are numerous stories out there, by the way, people who thought that they were too old, too young, too, out of shape, too divorced to ever find happiness again. And then it just happens because that's what's written for them. It's amazing.